College can open doors to so many life opportunities. Moises Urena certainly knows this. As a freshman at the university, Moises understands he escaped a tough neighborhood in the South Bronx, where gangs, drugs, and violence trap many teenagers in a vicious cycle. While Moises shares similarities with many of his fellow students, it didn't take him long to realize he was different. Hello, wonderful people. I'm Scott Leffler for Wonderbot. And here is... After being homeless for years, this mother and son duo are both attempting to get their bachelor's degrees. Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos. Unlike most of the incoming freshmen, Moises knew firsthand what it's like to be homeless. That's why he felt so at home at college, because having a warm bed to sleep in is not something he takes for granted. He noticed a few others like him because they slept with balled-up sweatshirts instead of pillows. They didn't know to bring one and didn't have the money to buy one. They stayed at the library studying until closing time because they didn't have their own computers. They stayed on the weekend because they couldn't afford dining out or cab fares. Moises has his own laptop provided by the nonprofit that helped him apply to college. But he also stays at the library until they close, busy studying and working on his homework. He's dedicating his life to graduating college, and he knows how difficult this will be. He's witnessed his mother, Lena Beltry, struggle to earn a bachelor's degree for years. She worries that her beloved son will end up like her, in debt, barely scraping by, and forever wondering what it will take to get that diploma. She desperately wants to finish her last credits, which she hopes will launch her out of poverty and into a decent job that lets her son pay off her student loans and make a better future for her and her son. Moises' college loans add up to $7,000 annually. That's nearly half his mother's yearly income of less than $16,000. Lena's at her fourth college trying for a bachelor's degree. While graduation may be on the horizon, she'll owe thousands of dollars as well. Her challenges are similar to many students throughout the country. The national college graduation rate after 6 years is about 60%. For the more than one-third of students at four-year schools who receive Pell Grants, the figure is nearer to 50%. That means a lot of financially strapped students are on track to fail. It's tough for people to pursue their educational goals while they have to worry about paying bills on time and putting food on the table. Now, some government officials are stepping up to try and find a solution. Former presidential candidate Bernie Sanders earned support for his proposal to provide free tuition at public colleges and universities. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is another advocate for equal access to education. He vowed to make college tuition free at New York State schools for students whose families make less than $125,000 as part of his Excelsior scholarship plan. There's no doubt that states need to take more action and make education more affordable. However, some experts argue that plans like Governor Cuomo's mostly help middle-income students who are already on the path to college graduation. Instead, at least some of the focus needs to be on the low-income students who are in danger of dropping out. Moises and Lena wouldn't be eligible for the Cuomo proposal because the plan would only cover costs for full-time students after other grants were used up. While his tuition is covered by federal and state aid, Moises must take out loans for room and board, which is twice as much as tuition, at nearly $13,000 a year. Nina has nowhere else to turn for federal and state aid, and her part-time student status disqualifies her from most other options. Ian Rosenblum is the executive director of Education Trust New York. This nonprofit education advocacy group published a report about the Excelsior Scholarship. "We can't leave behind families who need more assistance to close that financial gap," he said. Moises and Lena certainly need more help to realize their college dreams. "It's amazing and it breaks you. I never thought I'd be in a library for 2 hours every day," Moises said. "It's a whole new world. I thought I had it, but it smacked me in the face." Despite all the challenges, the 19-year-old has big dreams. He wants to start a nonprofit in the Bronx to mentor and lead young people on the path to a better life. Then he wants to run for local political office, working his way up until a White House run, perhaps in 2039. In comparison, Lena's ambitions are relatively small but equally admirable. Her goals of being a Spanish literature professor are permanently on hold as caring for Moises and his 8-year-old sister take precedence. She's now shooting for a more achievable job in the healthcare management. "I don't like it when people settle for less," she says. But these days, the point is to pay my rent and not struggle. Well, Lena has a place to call home now. Her past homelessness is always in the back of her mind. She hopes a college degree will save her from that fate, but first she'll have to pay off her debt. Back in her 20s, Lena earned an associate's degree from LaGuardia Community College in Queens. She worked on the side to cover her tuition, and much like her son does today, she stayed behind at the library because she couldn't afford her own textbooks. That's where she met Moises' father. After graduation, she worked as a preschool teacher for 15 years in a low-paying but otherwise good position. She quit her preschool job to move to Pennsylvania with her young son and his dad, but the relationship didn't last. When she came back to New York, she tried to become an actress and artist, bouncing from relatives' homes to rentals where she was always overstaying her welcome or battling eviction. After the birth of her second child, she started working at a daycare center. She tried to finish her bachelor's degree at the same time by taking online courses through University of Phoenix, a for-profit college with bleak graduation rates. The stressed mother eventually found it too difficult to do the work online. She'd hoped she could succeed in traditional classes, so she enrolled in a medical technician program at another for-profit, Sanford Brown College. She got her certificate, but a fellow student accidentally stuck her with a needle during training and she lost her desire for the job. "I should have a master's by now," she said. Instead, she's used up all her college aid and her loans were awaiting payment. She fell into homelessness when Moises was in middle school. Relatives were no longer interested in housing her and her children. Her teenage son began skipping school, while her young daughter exhibited signs of anxiety. Lena took on waitressing and housekeeping jobs while searching for a permanent place to live. Her determination hasn't wavered. "I've struggled so much to try and better myself. I'm trying to have more options," she said. 4 or 5 years from now, I'm not going to be in the same situation I'm in now. She hasn't given up on her dream of a bachelor's degree. With the aid of a city subsidy, Lena was able to secure a one-bedroom apartment in the Bronx for her family. She signed up for courses at Metropolitan College of New York, a nonprofit designed for adult learners like herself. Other options may have been cheaper, but she was concerned she'd fail the required math placement tests and didn't have the time to waste. Metropolitan may have been the place for her. The school is dedicated to serving students like Lena, one of the non-traditional students who make up 3/4 of the American college population. A quarter of college students in 2012 worked full-time, while more than 25% had dependents. 15% were single with dependents. A lot of adults have really complicated trajectories through higher education, Vinton Thompson, Metropolitan's president, said in an interview with Heckinger Report. Students who get towards their last 2 or 3 terms and then their aid eligibility expires, the last thing you want to do is have these students fail toward the finish line. It's a big issue. These students need more options and opportunities. The underlying fundamental problem is poverty, just like K-12 education, he added. One of the things we hope we do is bring students out of poverty into the workforce, put them on their feet and make them good citizens and productive citizens. Research shows communities with low average incomes have high average student loan debts. Completion rates are far better for full-time students than part-timers, but it's not a realistic path for everyone. Job and family responsibilities can present many roadblocks in earning that degree. For Lena, she takes classes part-time because she can't afford to get overwhelmed by the workload and fail another class. When it was time for her son to head to college, her plans for a warm send-off were interrupted when her daughter was rushed to the hospital with an intestinal infection. Moises went by himself to Albany for his summer orientation. Lena was juggling her daughter's medical problems and issues of her own, and she faced uncertainty with covering her loans for tuition at Metropolitan. Her professors liked having her in class. She asks questions all the time. That's a person that always wants to learn. That's the type of person that professors want to teach, said Michael Altamirano, a business professor who taught Lena in a marketing class. Yet her struggles became evident as she had too much on her plate. She warned her son Moises about keeping his focus on school. "It's your first semester. Concentrate on your studies. I don't want you to get stressed out and end up dropping out," she told him, according to the Heckinger Report. Her love for her son is evident, especially considering all the sacrifices she's made. She doesn't want him stuck in their old neighborhood where assaults and robberies run rampant. "I'm very proud of him," she said. "He got jumped and he doesn't want to stay around here. They can smell success and they pick at you." That incident from spring 2016 left Moises badly shaken. He was playing basketball by himself in the light of day at a park near Yankee Stadium when several neighborhood boys surrounded him and slammed him to the pavement. He fought them off and recovered from his concussion, but the emotional trauma remains. Moises managed to avoid the peer pressure of gang violence and drugs, instead choosing to get involved with College Summit. The national nonprofit seeks to harness the power of peer pressure for good, encouraging influential students to persuade their friends to submit college applications. Despite his academic struggles, Moises was an ideal College Summit student, with his bright smile, kind personality, and natural charisma that appealed to both his peers and teachers. His life was changed after a weekend conference with College Summit. He returned to his high school classes with renewed determination to improve his GPA and get into his dream school, University of Albany. Elected student government president, Moises found his footing as a leader, even becoming a mentor to several underclassmen. When he received word of his acceptance at Albany, he was ecstatic. He'd been accepted as part of the Educational Opportunity Program, EOP, a 50-year-old state program benefiting low-income students by lowering test score admission requirements and providing a variety of additional monetary support. When he boarded a bus to Albany with his College Summit laptop and a gift bag full of bedding, toiletries, and slippers from his high school, his teachers knew he'd make the most of it. He has empathy, he has that grit, he's a survivor, Watfa Shama, his high school principal, said. I'm just really proud of him. He's been through his share of difficulties, trying to keep his head above water as he juggles coursework and keeping tabs on the family he loves so much back home. His mom and sister miss his calming presence around the house. Lena wishes she could see her son more, but she's found hope in qualifying for grants and tutoring from Metropolitan's Welfare to Careers project. This covers tuition, even part-time, for students if they can maintain a 2.0 GPA. Meanwhile, Moises misses home and wonders what life would be like if he'd stayed home and helped his mom. Yet he knows he's made the right choice, and he's found a solid routine of asking for help when needed and studying hard. He's hooked up with a work-study job tutoring high schoolers, and he never misses a class, often sitting in the front row. I don't see as many people like me as I thought I would, he said. I feel like I belong here, but it also feels like I don't have who I need up here. I don't have people who struggled like me. He ended his first fall semester on a high note, making the dean's list. He signed up to be a residential advisor, which would take care of room and board and eliminate the need for future loans. And he's putting aside money from his early morning coffee job. While he normally saves his money for bills, he splurged on a pair of Ugg boots for his mom. Moises is trying to improve the system for those following in his footsteps. He's even lobbied legislators on Capitol Hill, calling for increased funds for the Educational Opportunity Program. New York State Assembly Speaker Carl Heastie, who once worked as an EOP counselor at Stony Brook University, proposed raising EOP's budget to $37.5 million. You always still have to make sure there are correct allocations of slots for opportunity students, Heastie said in an interview. We're not going to lessen the opportunities.